What's going on, guys? This is MrTeej66 Movie Reviews. I am Mr. Teej. Today's movie review is, what a shock, another oldie, because I'm old and I love movies. It's also my second in a series of Drunken movie reviews, where I talk about movies while I'm actually kind of drunk, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. But today's movie is 1991's Backdraft, starring Kurt Russell, William Baldwin, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Robert De Niro, and a couple others, and directed by Ron Howard. And, you know, it's a movie I've heard a lot about for a long time and have never gotten around to reviewing, which is kind of surprising since, you know, my late uncle Mickey was a firefighter for over 20 years, and I grew up around firefighters, and, you know, it just never got around to reviewing it until a couple months ago. Or seeing it till a couple months ago, but and it's also the movie that kind of inspired me to do what I do. I'll get to that at the end. But the plot of this movie is William Baldwin plays Brian McCaffrey, and he's just graduated from the Fireman Academy, and he's had a couple other jobs, hasn't done so well. His dad was a firefighter many years ago who was killed, you know, in an accident involving fire, and his brother, Steven, played by Kurt Russell, who actually, interestingly enough, also plays the father. That was a very interesting sort of idea, to have the actor play both the father and the son, which has really never been... I can't think of too many other movies which have done that before, so that was a very interesting... But anyway, he comes back, he goes to the fire academy, and he's come out, and of course, the older brother, Kurt Russell's like, you know, not believing that he has the guts to do, or, you know, the guts or anything to do what he has to do, and is very disapproving of him, and, of course, it's a brotherly rivalry, and, you know, we've seen that 1,000 times before, and there's some mystery man who's killing off, apparently, these, like, councilmen or something like that. They're very specifically oriented fires, which are blowing these people up, and there's a connection, and Robert De Niro plays a fire investigator who is investigating these things and tries to find a connection, and there's more to it, but it's basically a mix of the thriller aspect and the dramatic aspect with the two brothers. And I won't say any more, but although the movie's very predictable, so you'll figure it out. And I'm going to go ahead and get the negatives out of the way just off the bat, because the movie's certainly not flawless, as much as I'm going to rave about it. The screenplay, probably the biggest flaw of the movie is the screenplay. It's very predictable. It's paint by the numbers, even by 1991 standards. Like, it is predictable as hell. All the characters are basic types. You've seen them 1,000 times before. If you've seen a movie, you're going to know what's going on. There's even a montage sequence. Like, are montages even done anymore? I don't even know, but there's one set to a really cheesy 90s, you know, rock ballad, which is kind of embarrassing, I admit. The movie also has a subplot with where the younger brother Brian meets an old flame played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, and she's a assistant to a very prestigious mayor council, a mayor candidate, and it's pretty bad. You know, there's no chemistry whatsoever between them. It's just clearly thrown in there to be the love interest, and it doesn't go anywhere, and they really could have gotten rid of it. Also, the movie, there's also a character played by, who is it? The girl from Risky Business. I forget her name off the top of my head, but anyway, Rebecca De Mornay, thank you. She plays the wife of Kurt Russell, and her character is kind of just a generic housewife, really not that interesting, you know. Although she does have a great scene toward the end. In fact, the movie's kind of misogynistic. This is the 90s, you know. Women weren't portrayed very well in film. They were just sort of the housewife or the love interest. And so that definitely brings the movie down a little bit. But overall, the good points, I think, overwhelm the bad. You know, the acting is pretty good. Kurt Russell is the man in this movie. He is just, even with a cliched, boring, you know, character like this, he just does so much to make it interesting and likable. There's, who else? Scott Glenn plays a fellow firefighter who is also very funny. You know, the acting is pretty good. There's actually a couple of real volunteer firemen in the movie who play firemen, which adds a certain authenticity to them. They're not, you know, typical pretty boys. In fact, in some of the special features on the DVD, or the Blu-ray, I should say, they say that, like, this job ages you. You know, they don't all look like Kurt Russell or Stephen Baldwin, so that's a very good thing. The fire effects in this movie are great. Like, some of the explosions in this movie are scary. How, like, Even when you know it's stunt people around these explosions, you're like, man, these guys have guts. You know, like, I wouldn't want to be around that. Although they do say the fire sequences in this movie aren't exactly realistic because, you know, if you were in that enclosed space with that much fire, there'd be so much smoke you wouldn't be able to see anything. But of course, that's an artistic choice on the filmmaker's part to make it more interesting. But still, you really get a sense of what these guys go through, and you know how they risk their lives to save people, and it's really wonderfully well done. Stephen Baldwin is okay. He's a little dull. You know, it's nature of the character. He's a generic, you know, everyman that we have to root for, and we see the whole story through their eyes, so that's okay. So, you know, it's I would say it's a film that the sheer Hollywood craftsmanship manages to overcome the cheesy, you know, predictable nature of the screenplay. Ron Howard does a great job directing this movie. You know, it moves very well. It's just the right length. It's not too long. It's not too short. It's just right. He keeps things moving. He keeps on the human element, even when that human element is a little cliche and you know, predictable. But I have to say, though, I said I was going to say how this movie inspired me, and the end sequence, which is, spoiler warning, I'm going to have to spoil the end of this movie. Okay, Kurt Russell's character dies, of course, because it's just, you knew that was going to happen, and then, of course, the mayor gets busted and everything like that, but just that final 2 minutes where Stephen Baldwin is sitting there, and he's looking at the hat, and, you know, he's not sure if he can, you know, keep going, because his father and his brother have both died. And then that bell goes off, and he comes down those stairs. I'm telling you, Hans Zimmer's music, too. I have to mention Hans Zimmer's music. It's like some of the most inspiring music I've ever heard in my entire life. I mean, when he goes out and he helps a guy who's, you know, new on the job, and he helps him, you know, get his stuff together, it's just, you ever see something that just inspires you and just makes you keep going? Because I haven't been doing very well in these movie reviews. I have only been getting a couple hits, you know, but then I think of that. I think of how much he came through, and it just inspires me to keep going, no matter how many times I get knocked down, how many times people say, you can't do this, you know, you're never going to get anywhere with this. I go, no way. This is what I love. This is what I do. Movies have been a part of me since I can't even know how long, and that whole ending, it just... Does it have anything to do with firefighting? Does this movie reviewing have anything to do with firefighting? Not in the slightest. But I will keep going. I will keep doing what I do. And I want to thank every single person who has supported me. That, like, you will not be forgotten. So, I mean, it seems ridiculous to think that, like, a firefighting movie has anything to do with movie reviewing, but it does. Every time I think of I can't do it anymore, I will remember this movie, and I will keep going for good. So anyway, sorry to get all emotional and sentimental there, but anyway, that's my movie review of Backdraft. I hope you check it out, and I will see you next time for more MrTeej66 movie reviews.